Hey everyone, I'm sitting here with Joel English. He's the sponsoring broker and founder president of Texas C.R.E.S. So Joel, can you give us a little background on where you're from, how'd you get started?
Sure. Born and raised in Houston. Grew up in a little suburb called Tomball, and went to Tomball High School. Graduated in '95, which seems like an eternity ago now. And put myself through the University of St. Thomas in Houston, doing leasing of a small retail portfolio that the family owns in Pasadena, Texas.
So currently with Texas C.R.E.S, what is your job title and what are some of your responsibilities?
I'm the president of the company and the broker of record. I guess that makes me the catch-all in some ways, but we've got great support that helps lighten that load for me. The hiring, the firing, the problem solving on deals and so on. But generally that's, I think, a good synopsis.
Yeah, cool. So to get into that role of being, president of your own brokerage and the sponsoring broker, managing people, what was kind of the progression into that role?
While I was in college, I worked with different brokerage companies, and then out of college continued with a couple of shops. I was with NewQuest for about 4 years, worked with Henry Miller Commercial, started my original firm, CEC Brokerage. CEC was acquired in 2009 by NAI Partners, which is now called Partners. And I was there about a year and just realized the highly structured corporate thing was not my jam, and decided I wanted a more relaxed environment to work in, and made my way out of that situation gracefully and peacefully. Great friends from over there, great brokers. Just the drive on 290 was more than I was willing to do every morning, and waste, in my mind, 2 hours a day just sitting in a concrete parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was kind of where I landed here. We started C.R.E.S. Me and my friend Jeff Spann ran as C.R.E.S for a few years, and then with his focus being more development driven and mine more brokerage, we felt it might be better to separate and keep our focuses on what we're doing. We still do deals together and are good friends, but C.R.E.S is probably, quadrupled or more in size since then.
Yeah, it's been about 5 years.
It was 2015, I believe, I started C.R.E.S. So that's 8 years. Yeah, we're in our 8th year.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned you cut your teeth in Pasadena, kind of working for your family and the ownership portfolio y'all have out there. Can you tell me a little bit how that got started and where your family began their real estate journey?
So while I was in college, my father's rule while I was in high school was school was your job.
Mm-hmm.
And as a freshman, I was doing, I think, a 12-hour load, and it wasn't enough to keep me focused. And I asked permission at that point. I was 18 years old at the time. And he said, well, if you want to get a job, why don't you just go work out in Pasadena? And I really didn't realize at that time that we owned the properties that we owned.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, what do you want to do out there? Work in a refinery? Just kind of half joking. And he said, no, go help Betty manage those properties out there. And I was like, we're still involved in that? And I really didn't know. I didn't know we owned that property.
Right.
And so I go out and didn't know anything about real estate other than having been around it because my mother was a realtor, certainly on the commercial side, and just dove in, started going and showing buildings and learning what terminology was and getting familiar with all of that. And about a year after I started doing that, I realized that I was doing all the work and they were making all the money because they owned it. And I thought, if I want to do something in this career field, I need to get my license and do it for other people also. So while I was still in college, I got my license, I think, as a sophomore in college, and started doing third-party brokerage in about 97, I guess that was. So that's where I landed here.
It's the year I was born, 97.
Yeah,
so,
rub it in.
Yeah,
rub it in.
Hey, man, second generation right here. Somebody's got to pick it up, or you're going to leave it off, man.
I hope.
So as far as from a business management standpoint, I want to talk about C.R.E.S a little bit. How large is C.R.E.S as an organization right now?
Like number of brokers.
So let's say number of brokers, number of employees, and then maybe your opinion of what you have as far as market share goes.
I would have to research to get real tight on that. And regionally, I think C.R.E.S has probably a similar market presence to some of the bigger shops, New Quest and Caldwell Companies and Colliers. And really interestingly, New Quest and Caldwell Companies are up in the same Northwest market. The other shops that are Galleria based or downtown based seem to have a broader cast of the whole city, where our focus, if you look at our listing portfolio, it's mainly Northwest with some others that are relationship driven, or obviously the Pasadena stuff that I still handle.
Right.
But generally, I think 13 is the number of agents or brokers that we have associated with Texas C.R.E.S, and I believe there's 3 admin roles.
As far as your management style goes, how would you say you are as a manager?
With the shops that I worked with, and again, nothing bad to say about any of the previous experiences, other than the logistics or timing. But generally, I went to 3 of the largest brokerage shops in town over the years, and I feel like what I was learning was not only the brokerage business, but also on the management side, what parts of how I was handled as a subordinate at the time I liked and thought were reasonable and good, versus the things that I didn't like. And one of the things, and not to name any names, but the meetings for the sake of meetings. And I thought it was a waste of everybody's time. And I try not to do that to the agents and brokers that work with us. Very casual. I mean, you see, this is Thursday and I'm wearing shorts and a button down. I mean, and it's pretty common in this case. I think you dress to your audience. And if you've got a meeting with someone you think wants you to be wearing something different, you wear it. It's not going to hurt anyone's feelings. But I jokingly say I know how to tie a tie, but I don't like doing it.
Right.
So
I guess that's
and I'm not joking by saying that, but
right.
I think the majority of the people that you're dealing with that are property owners are going to be a little older, and traditionally they have ideas, whether they're right or wrong, that they're going to make assumptions, and they probably shouldn't, but they do. So to me, it's okay if I can avoid that risk, let me avoid it.
Right.
So I think generally, how casual and relaxed we are around here. But you see, shows like Billions where Axe, have you watched the show at all?
I just finished season 1 last night.
Axe is walking around in his Metallica t-shirt and blue jeans.
Right.
I mean, it's, doing well in business is not indicated by what you drive or how you dress or any of those things. It's, taking care of your clients and being responsible with the money you do make. There's a balance to that, and Sam Walton, the joke with him was, and it wasn't a joke, it was true, was that he drove like a 1980 F-150 and just kept it running. Never bought a new truck. And so a lot of times you'll find the flashier the people, the less they really have and the more leveraged they are. And those things are just realities. But every person's different. I'm not judging anyone who lives either way, but it's just more of a people are people, and let them be who they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do think that it's something that you're right about. It's better to have it, not need it. But I guess it would be the inverse of that. It's better to not have it and need it.
And not let it hurt you.
Right. So, as far as when you got started to the point you're at now, where you're managing 13 employees, agents underneath you, at what point, and I know you have an assistant and you've got 2 other administrators in the firm, or 3, at what point did you know that you needed to hire on somebody to kind of help you keep your production levels at their most efficient rates?
Honest answer, I don't know that they are at the most efficient rates, but when I got to a point where I felt like I needed support, it was just not as quick responsiveness. I noticed I couldn't handle the call volume. The listing portfolio had grown to a point where I'd get too many calls to return in a day, and I don't like being the broker that doesn't return calls. And, there are a lot of folks that complain about that and yell, and it's like, well, do you want a broker that is busy or one that calls you right back because they got them to work on?
Right.
There's a weird balance there. I guess it was about at 6 agents. I needed someone to help with books and cutting commission checks and just managing the day-to-day stuff. And then recently added a bookkeeper because as we've grown from 5 to 10 to 13 brokers, there was just a need. So that's where we added that.
Well, yeah, congratulations for having that need.
I hope we continue to need it.
Absolutely. Hopefully
the
you
goal.
keep expanding. When you compare managing 3 people to managing 10 people, do you think that there is a point where you reach critical mass in a sense to where at X number of employees, it's just as easy to manage no matter how many more you get? Or do you think as you increase the number of employees, the difficulty to manage all of them increases proportionally?
I think it depends on the people. But fortunately, in the brokerage business, most people are, self-motivated and self-disciplined. So I guess it's hard for me to answer that. As it relates to C.R.E.S., I don't know that the number of brokers matters as much as if I had that many employees. Everyone has their own MO and the way they do things, and for me, so long as it's legal and ethical, I really don't mind how it's done as long as it gets done and we take care of our clients, because there's no amount of deals, or there's no certain point where you say, okay, that's enough, I'm done. And the longer you do this, the better relationships you build. Not that it becomes easier, but it becomes, it kind of replenishes itself. You have repeat clients, you have people that refer you other people because you took good care of them or their cousin or whoever it is. But it's a business that your reputation matters, and building good relationships is the key. And we have that little slogan, I guess you'd call it. Our foundation is in the relationships we build, and where it feels a little cheesy to say that, it's true. I mean, bottom line is, I don't get calls, people leading to me to list properties, which happens all the time, but I wouldn't had I not been doing this for a long time and taking good care of clients. Being from the area certainly helps too, and knowing a lot of people up here, but end of the day, that's the thing, is you just take good care of your clients and they'll refer you more or do other deals or both. So
Give them a superb customer experience, and
as best you can. I mean, there's limits to what we have control over, obviously, but if we do the best we can with what we have, the flexibility to influence, I think people remember that.
And I think that answers the next question I was going to ask you. I mean, we go on lunch meetings, trips to the gas station, and you always have somebody walking up to you saying, "Hey Joel, how are you?" And it seems like you know everybody in town, and I'm sure that's just from years of networking and working with people and getting to know the business owners and knowing your community.
I grew up out here. I lived close by. I helped a lot of people with their businesses in the area. There's a lot of that. But I'll tell you, the more the area grows and the older I get, the less of that I see. As I get older and people that were the core, people that I knew from the area move away or, God forbid, pass away, there's some of that too that goes on. Your sphere of influence changes by nature of those things, or by the nature of those things, and you kind of have to continue to build the relationships as you go, because people change, people move, and all those things are a reality. But that's the thing, you build relationships from the ground up. And,
Absolutely.
Some people grow and do great, and other people hit a certain point and they plateau, and that's good enough for them, but that's fine too. So and they remember you. If you treat people right, they remember you, they come back, and they refer people. That's the name of the game.
So I was going to ask you what your best piece of advice from a brokerage, production, and management standpoint would be. Would you say it's treat others how you'd want to be treated? It'll come back to pay you?
Oh, 100%. Golden rule is always true in anything in life. And I think, I'm just as happy with 5 doubles as I am home run.
Absolutely.
I mean, the biggest takeaway from that is, again, I've said it probably 6 times, is relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think in any sales position, not just real estate, you'll hear most people say relationships is going to take you far. I want to talk about the market a little bit. So you've been brokering for how many years?
Well, brokering using lingo in the commercial real estate industry since '97. So 20, what is it, 25 years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, roughly. Doing commercial real estate since '95. So that'd be 28 years. No, so it'd be 26 and 28. And then as a broker since 2004.
So you've seen multiple up and downs in the market. You've seen the 2008 crash. You've seen.
I think that was, I mean, the roller coaster is always a roller coaster. There are ups and downs. But when you have a cliff you fall off like in '08 and '09, and it's hard. And it's not as difficult. It's not the people. It's the mechanics of the deal. They just don't work.
Right.
Yeah, right now, you can't go buy a 7-cap investment property with a 30% equity position at 9.5 interest in a cash flow. It just does not work.
Doesn't work out.
And it doesn't cash flow. So the bank won't do the loan. It's stalemate.
So it's just completely halted any production on that niche in the industry.
In the investments right now, it's next to impossible unless it's cash or very limited leverage.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the benefit of buying real estate is the ability to leverage and build equity, and 15, 20 years down the road, you have no debt on it. Of course, then you have a 15 or 20-year-old building, and the area, the demographics and the age of the other improvements in the area will change too. So, there is that cycle. But if money's costing you 9% plus right now compared to 3 and 4 2 years ago, it's just such a huge swing that the cap rates that follow these investment properties have not adjusted to account for. And until they do, which again, inverse correlation between cap rates and values. The lower the cap rate, higher the value, the higher the cap rate, the lower the value. So if cap rates trend back up towards the interest rates, which they gradually will do, they always do, or down when they're lower, it's where we are.
Yeah.
And what hopefully doesn't happen is the Fed doesn't continue to hold these interest rates up. That combined with retail in general, many types of retail, true traditional retail is almost obsolete. The big boxes, the Walmarts and the Targets and the grocery stores are still pretty active, but a lot of the other retailers are just shutting it down because they're going to online only and just delivering it to your front door, which, Amazon obviously was a big influence in that. But traditional retail is more like a service these days. It's restaurants, it's hair salons, nail salons.
Things you can't order online.
Things you can't order online. And legal offices, title companies, real estate offices, a lot of that is really more office, but sometimes you see them in retail center environments. So it's always changing. That's one of the things that's really fun about real estate is as soon as you learn it, it's going to change. You got to learn it again.
Mm-hmm. Well, with election year coming up and your experience and your history in the past with election year, do you expect the market to see an uptick or to stalemate or go down?
It depends. I mean, it really, to me, boils down to when do they start adjusting these interest rates. If I'm guessing, and this isn't a partisan comment at all, this is just me observing, election years, regardless of who's in, usually are good years because who's ever there wants to get reelected and they want to take credit for fixing whatever might have been wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to try, to the extent they have the influence to make it happen, to make things better, even if it's just for the year. So I'm guessing first quarter next year and hoping that we see an interest rate adjustment. So the people that are in these deals that might have adjusting rates in 2 or 3 years out, because a lot of these commercial loans are maybe a 20-year amortization, but they're only fixed for 5 or 7 years. And if they refied 2 years ago, come 3 years, when it adjusts and goes from 3.5 or 4% to 9,
Yeah.
they're not going to cash flow. Mm-hmm. They're going to either have to infuse more cash, sell it at a discount because the cap rates by then probably will have adjusted unless interest rates come down. But they've got to do something, and I'm the last person you're ever going to find that says they need to regulate more, but things like general contracting, the construction costs, were there supply shortages? Yeah, I get it. But the cost of lumber is a very minor component in the package of building materials. And you saw with builders, I mean, when interest rates spiked in July of last year, I think it went from 4 to like 6, and now we're at 7 or 8 for even a mortgage. But the builders, all of a sudden, their prices trimmed by 15%.
Mm-hmm.
They're still working in the same construction climate. So that says to me that they had that much more meat in the deal, profit to them, which I'm not, faulting anyone for making profit where they can.
They got to make their money,
But they were able to come back and be just below and make up for the spendability or the value of a dollar leverage, we'll say. They were able to adjust that marker and make people that wouldn't have gotten approved at the 15% higher price get approved even with the higher interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to adjust that much for a home buyer who owns a home for a year and they decide they need to move or get transferred, and they're trying to at least get even, pay a broker and go down the road, so they need to make a 6% margin without taking it on the chin and taking a loss. They couldn't do it.
Yeah, they're the ones that are suffering.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, in the Houston market that I've seen, things have been pretty stable. They haven't gone backwards on values for the existing construction stuff, on the residential side, that is. And commercial, for the most part, it's just kind of gone flat. It's just things are selling, but not nearly as quickly. Values haven't compressed that much yet. And I don't know that they will if they adjust the interest rates. If they accomplish their goal of slowing it was hyperinflation. It was 20% a year, probably more so than they're saying 5 or whatever. I don't
Walk into a grocery store.
I don't even listen.
Look at the price of milk and eggs. I
Yeah.
think eggs at one point, that was probably a supply issue, but that was what, $8 a dozen or something like that?
Yeah.
It was something insane.
A 2x4 was $8.
Right.
They used to be, 2. They've come down. Last I bought some was 3 1/4. But I can see 3 1/4 compared to 2, but 8. That's a hard adjustment to make, and that's part of what the builders and when the builder costs this much to build it, if you already got one built, that makes yours worth more too, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of that drove the values so quickly and so aggressively, and the banks just kept loaning. The banks never stopped them.
Mm-hmm.
So the builders kept ticking it up as far as they could, and all of a sudden, a building that used to be $150 a foot's $280 a foot, and it's unsupportable in the long run. And again, I don't fault anyone for making profit at all. Good for you, but I'm also not a fool, and I'm not going to pay that.
Right.
I know what it really should cost.
Think about the first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
Doesn't know.
They don't, and they're gonna, it is what it is.
So I'll segue into investing questions. So one of the reasons I got into real estate in the first place was because I did want to pursue the wholesaling residential real estate side, and quickly I realized that that may not be the best route to take. Why would I take on all that risk myself when I can get in as a broker and kind of learn the game and mitigate my risk and make some profit, make some revenues and commissions on the backside. So you're heavy in the investment side. Would you say that, what is the split between what you focus on from a real estate investing side to your real estate brokerage side, as far as bandwidth, I would say?
How much time do I spend?
Mm-hmm.
I think the brokerage takes about 80% of my time, and the development and ownership investments type stuff is the other 20.
Okay. Do you prefer to do one over the other?
Long term, probably be more investments, fewer transactional things, just to have more time, because it's time consuming to juggle as many transactions as I do a year and give people good representation. But in the long run, the goal and plan would be just to own enough to replace the income and live a similar lifestyle and take care of my family. But I don't know that it'll ever flip to 80-20. It may just go to flat on the investments and development side, and I'll let you young bucks kind of do the brokerage deals.
Hey man, like I said, you got to pass the torch at some point.
Yeah.
So as far as your investment strategy goes, what is your prime investment? What do you look for? How do you find these deals?
I like, especially in a market like now, well, I'll say that, let me qualify that. In a inflated market where your new construction is prohibitively high, I like older properties that have been undermanaged, and something you can spritz up do some deferred maintenance, stabilize with better tenants, and get your cap rate spread by doing that.
And are you talking about residential, commercial, or do you like to mix it up?
Both. If I'm choosing between one or the other, I would rather do commercial because it's just been my focus. I'm just better at managing that than I am the residential because it's different. It's different enough when someone's home, the laws protect them because it's their home, and they should. Compared to a business where if someone doesn't pay, you just lock them out.
I think that's exactly what you told me when we first talked about my investing goals was I wanted to do residential, and you said that I guess the landlord-tenant laws, no matter what state you're in, are going to favor the tenant.
For sure.
And in a residential situation, you can really get put out for a while. I think it's 90 days to evict, or even just a.
They're supposed to be, but if they know how to play the game, they can tie you up longer than that.
I've heard they've got professional tenants, is what they call them, and some of them know how to hold you out of your property for 3 years, which would just be a nightmare. I can assume.
Yeah.
So would you say you're from the investment side? Have you had enough time in the game to where you consistently have positive experiences? Do you still experience any negative investments?
I think. We do the little flips. We got the little entity that does the buy and renovate and sell model. And those deals are really difficult to find right now. Back in 07, before 08 and 09, there were enough of them before it got really bad that you could buy it, fix it up, and sell it and make a little money. And, to me, you're doing a service to really the seller because they don't have the cash to fix it up. So you're getting them out of a situation that's probably going to be tough to sell to somebody who wants to live in a home that seems nice and new, versus the buyer that has enough for the down payment but not enough to do the improvements, because they can take those monies that you invest in the improvements and just roll that into their financing instead of having to come with a down payment and the money to do the improvements. So that model I enjoy a lot because it gives people that may not otherwise be able to afford as nice a home that opportunity. So we've enjoyed doing those, but they're tough to find because the challenge right now is there's so many people that have watched those TV shows and think they're house flippers, and they pay more than they should for the home and the condition it's in, and then you're competing with that as a buyer, and your margins just dwindle down to where it's not worth taking the risk because you get hung with them sometimes. You think comps say this and the market says that, and you're like, well, okay, what do we do now? We have to lease it until we can find a way out of it.
Seems like you see those bandit signs on every corner. We buy homes, some of your property.
The billboards, the commercials. I mean, so many of those folks doing it. But it's still a fun business, and we still get a few done a year on that side. But it's been an interesting couple of years in the house flipping market. It really has. It's 2021. I mean, everyone's overpaying, and then
by a lot.
Yeah. And it was all that California money, kind of like 08 and 09, where California was selling ridiculously high and people were coming to Houston because Houston's cheap compared to California.
Right.
And it still is, but they inflated our market here. I say that, I'm not blaming the Californians, but just those types of buyers, they were paying more than they should for stuff.
100%.
It created a very interesting year in that industry.
I remember when all that was going down. You look at a property, you'd see. I saw videos of people standing outside of open houses, 20 deep, and they were putting in cash offers right there.
Over list, no inspection.
100K over listing price was the starting bid. So it was insane to see it. So somebody that wants to break in, a younger guy like me, wants to break into the real estate investing side. What's your advice on about timing, like when we should know to start? And what we can do to kind of mitigate our risk, because once you go from sales into investing, now you're exposed. You're putting in your own capital, and there is the risk of losing anytime you're investing.
If you have a year of your lifestyle expenses, your rent or your note, your car, enough to take care of your kids and family properly, in the savings, once you hit that point, I think you can take the risk and start investing as long as you've got some other source of income. And there's nothing wrong with starting small. It's like, nobody comes out of the womb running. It takes a while to get your legs under you, get the momentum, get your balance, you get running, get to stride. I mean, to me, you got to know what your own tolerance and risk tolerance is, and you'll learn. I mean, you'll probably overextend yourself at some point and scramble to keep up, and I know I did, and it's one of those things. I would just keep working until I figured it out.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of you have to fall flat to get up taller, right?
You learn how to budget for the peaks and valleys that we're all going to see in this business. It's just part of it. And that's one of those things that you never know when things are going to get better or worse. After you go through it once, you're paranoid about it because you've been through it, and you're trying to say, "Oh, here it comes, here it comes," and then it doesn't. Like I thought after 08 and 09, it would be sometime 18, 19. I think it might have been had it not been for COVID. As much as COVID had some negative impacts on the economy, and for that first year of it, 2020, first half of 2020 or so. Second half of 2020 and all of 21, things were great, and 22. And
because all the money that was being pumped.
All that money was dumped in, and people are getting paid to not work. I mean, it was just ludicrous.
Insane.
But and unfortunately, that whole evolution to, I'll call it a devolution, because it's just such a bad mindset. Is I get to work from home. I don't have to go to the office. Well, if you work for someone, you work where they ask you to work, and and that's probably generationally one of the things that I'm used to and I think is normal. And this next generation that was exposed to that year of that, some businesses had already done that before the COVID. I mean, there are jobs that you can do and accomplish your tasks from home. There are others that you just can't. And I think what we do in the synergy in an office environment, being close to your support, being able to ask questions of others that might have experienced something you haven't. There's a lot of value in that. Not that you can't call, but I know for me, if I'm focused on catching up on emails or getting a contract out, I never don't want to help. I always want to help, but I don't want to be distracted because I want to finish what I'm doing. And it's almost like you have to schedule the time anyway. But if it's a quick question, boom, answer it. Those happen all day for me. People pop in and say, "Hey, quick question."
I'm guilty of that. Yeah.
No, I don't mind it at all. I'm not saying I mind it. I'm saying it. If you weren't here, you would probably have to wait longer to get the answer.
Right.
I'd always call you back, but it might be the next morning or it might be late at night.
Right.
And if you can just pop in and ask me a quick question, you're here, you see me, you get the answer, and off you go.
Yep.
So to me, that helps you guys as much as it does me, and I think it's a good thing.
I've had some of my best interactions with my coworkers around me when Tyler overhears me in the office and says, "Hey, you sound real good on the phone. Try saying this next time."
Yeah.
I work that into my cold calling script, and I'm automatically getting a higher conversion rate. So I do think that, especially in sales, it's definitely good to be face to face with somebody, shake a hand, look each other in the eyes.
It's one thing that I think is a lot different about what we do, and why. Back in '98, when everyone was freaking out, when the internet was the new thing, I think I got sidetracked earlier. And my point in that was, the really old brokers that were, my age, say back then, like, oh my God, we're going to be obsolete. They won't need us anymore. Mm-hmm. And here we are, 26 years later, whatever the math is, and they still need us. They still need someone to talk through the terms of a deal, explain this, look into that. I mean, between, the title, the broker, the engineers, the attorneys, those types of roles for real estate transactions, they're always going to be involved. They're always going to have some sort of play in that stuff. So, no, I think our industry is probably more insulated from the web, and I keep pointing your computer, taking away from our need than residential. But even residential, there's a lot of that is relationship. It's comfort in knowing someone's in your corner, fighting for you, fighting for your best interest, knowing what market standards are. I think those things are valuable to others.
Absolutely. So, kind of just to wrap things up, I know you run multiple different businesses. You've got a couple different entities. C.R.E.S is obviously booming. Do you ever get free time? I kind of feel funny asking this, but what do you do whenever you do get some free time? Do you have any hobbies? Do you like to read? Do you like to play sports? I know you keep in shape. What do you like to do in your free time?
Keep in shape. I try to keep in shape.
There you go.
Chasing a 2-year-old around has helped me a lot, and I got another on the way, as you know. But when I do get time to get away, I love hunting. I love, even though I'm still working on my land, taking care of the land for the family. just being outdoors, getting away from the hustle and bustle and the stress of what we do every day, just to decompress. And it took me years to really establish a hard line of, I work Monday through Friday, and it may really be more like 7 to 9 p.m. or 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. But I try to make it 9 to 5 and shut down and spend time with family and enjoy that time, because you never know when your last day will be. But it's also important to me to leave something to them, so I try to balance.
Leave a legacy, but also
leave
nurture what you have while you're here.
It's kind of hard at this point leave the kind of legacy great granddad left, just because there's so many more checks and balances and so many more people you're fighting the government with their hand in everything, permits and codes and this and that. It's a different time, so it's harder to do that.
Sure.
But you can certainly leave them some comfort and some stability, and that's my main goal. I'm not trying to be the next Elon Musk. I want to be comfortable and take care of my family.
Absolutely.
But the hobbies, keep them, use them, do them. You need to have decompress time. If all you do is work, it'll drive you crazy. So you got to find a way to balance the need and want to make money and spending the time to enjoy it.
Absolutely. I think that's important.
Absolutely.
So October 2028, what is Joel C. English doing on his daily basis? That's 5 years from now.
5 years. I'll have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 24-year-old. No, 26-year-old. Jeez.
It's a big delta there.
Yeah.
You really restarted the clock.
I would hope that by then my involvement in the brokerage company is more of a manager-only role and not producing. Probably be working on some development stuff, and that will be more of my focus on my transactional day-to-day work. And I won't be brokering as much, but I'll be helping you guys and hopefully a handful more. I think we got room to grow here, and wouldn't be opposed to a Dallas or San Antonio or both offices for C.R.E.S as we grow. But I think probably, I don't know if it'll flip, but probably hope to be more like 20 brokerage and then 80 investments and development stuff.
For more of a personal aspect,
Yeah.
to where the company's hopefully running on its own and you don't have to be involved.
Both time and income, because right now it's probably between my investments and my development stuff about 20%, and then the brokerage is about 80, and I'd like to flip it to where my time is 20% brokerage and 80% development and investments, and the income stays similar, adjusting for the inflation that we didn't have for all those years. But generally, I think that's where I'll be. I think it'll shift. Maybe sooner. I mean, I would love to see you guys get more listings and transactions to work, and my role in that might be helping you land the business, and you take it and run with it from there. And I'm there to answer the questions that, by then 30 years of experience will help me answer.
Absolutely.
And we'll see what the future holds. We just got to fight through next year and the rest of this one to get to that point. But I think we'll get there.
I think that C.R.E.S is in a position for when that turnaround does come, we'll be right at the front of the pack.
Just got to stay lean and mean until then. And
Absolutely.
probably even during then. That was one thing after watching 08 and 09 and going through the acquisition of my firm, and then feeling like I wanted to leave. Again, nothing bad against NAI or that group, great guys, but it was more of a geographical thing, and having to drive down to the Galleria, it was just not a fit for me. But going through that and watching it was really only about 16 months that things were bad. But the problem was, buyers were looking for blood in the water, and sellers were obstinate because a year ago their buddy sold their property down the street for this much, whatever, and it was just a standoff, and nothing transacted. And when I spoke at the CCM forecast event, and I think it was 2010, whatever, 2010 or 11, whatever it was, that was the takeaway. I called my rep at CoStar and said, hey, what can you tell me about total transaction volume? That's all I want to know. Like last year, this year. And I don't remember the numbers, but it was staggering. how many more transactions had transacted in 2008 than 9.
Mm-hmm.
9 was the bad year. 10, things started picking up. And then 11, things were pretty good. 11 was a good year. Little ripple in 15 with the oil industry. And then since then, we rocked along until the Fed decided they wanted to triple the interest rates in a year. I mean, it's just crazy. But again, I feel like what they did, they had to do something. I think they just did it too abruptly and too quickly. And it probably means they're going to adjust it down too quickly too, to counter the pendulum swing. It's swinging too far this way, they're going to adjust, they'll swing too far the other way. But no, I think, again, it's a fun business and it's a roller coaster, but if you stay persistent and just keep working hard and you weather the storms when they're bad, it's really good when it's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how can people find you in Texas C.R.E.S?
Just TexasC.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, but I don't know how to use it very well. And I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't look at it very well either. I'm the old dog, you can't teach new tricks, admittedly, which is a fault. But
so you and all your agents' contacts are on TexasC.com, and the best place to find Joel C. English is Facebook.
yes,
Perfect.
that would be a good answer.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Joel.
Cool, man.
Looking
Appreciate
forward
it,
to
bro.
doing business.
Yep, looking forward to it. Many more.